slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Ayy, coming down like precipitation. I ain't never met a limitation. Hate plotting my elimination. Gotta go to Google for the information. I'm a superstar, so I gotta shine. Top dollar be the bottom line. Bottom feeding niggas out of line. Turn your heart rate to a dotted line. Yeah, my zodiac probably dollar sign. Got the energy to win it, my nigga, I'm feeling great. Got a date with destiny, focusing on my fate. I don't give a fuck what you rapping, you been a fake. I'm everything that they ain't, it can't be, it won't be. Wanna see me fall, I can't go, I won't leave. Coming from the block with plain clothes and police. Straight up to the top with bankrolls and rollies. Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? Ayy, 12 can't really stop shit, so I'm still pushing like a mosh pit. Ice dripping, think I'm hot shit. In a yellow bucket with the mop stick. I've been jugging jams like wholesale. Everything must go sell. Hitting bitches with the oh well. Need 100 million on the low scale. On my worst night, I'm the best nigga. Wouldn't mess with you, couldn't cap to him. Homie spotted me like 700, brought 1100 right back to him. If I can't do it, then it ain't real. I just make dollars, I don't make deals. I've been going hard in the paint, still blowing cushion clouds till I can't feel like. Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
One's last team, but this time we're going to be seeing it in game one, just kicking things off to start off the season on a different team, showing a very, very different thing. And speaking of differences, I do love the Sejuani top. We are going to be seeing that Dusk and Dawn play here, but we're seeing a lot of plays down in bot lane.
Yeah, sorry, slight audio issues, but we are back in case you miss it. Caleb Pang doing the play-by-play, joined with Anti on the color commentary, and we do have a showdown between GCCE Street Fighters versus XSV Gluttony. And
XSV Dusk nowadays, actually.
Oh, Dusk, yes, yeah. And should be a pretty good showdown. Street Fighter's been kind of a stable team in Divinity League for quite some time, so we've seen a lot of these players before. But, of course, the meta is kind of all over the place. I'm excited to see how it goes. So we've seen a couple Sejuani tops even in pro play as well. So, and in the right situation, that Sejuani can definitely dish out quite a bit of damage.
Oh, absolutely. Now, one thing I will also note here, so for those who did not hear earlier, GVG #1, actually, hold on, not even going to be thinking about that. Top lane, First Blood, Sejuani top, exactly what you were talking about, Caleb. This is a very strong pick because of the ability to use things like Dusk and Dawn, so you can get that passive stacked as quickly as possible. In the meantime, bot lane and mid lane still have tons and tons of fighting going on.
All right, it looks like there's going to be some more skirmishing over the scuttle, and there's going to be a Joker getting rooted up for the time being. John trying to run out there. Joker getting cut down quite a bit from this Gwen, as Yunara is going to take out Joker. Outrage going to go down as well to big news on the Varus. Although Gwen is going kind of crazy here as the Singe drops as well. Gwen drops too. 2-for-2 trades so far, but going to be a few more exchanges as, a double kill for Jack on the Ahri. And bodies dropping all over the place. Varus going to pick up 2 of those kills, but 2 kills going over to that mid laner on the Ahri is going to be quite a good gold income, especially in that mid lane matchup. The Singe definitely could be a strong pick in certain situations, but if you fall behind on Singe, it's not going to be a great time either.
Might not be a great time, but remember, this is the champion that GVG #1 put his heart and soul into in that last Divinity League season, was the final pick of his season last time around. This time is going to be the one starting his season. And I will also say, Singe, another one of those champions that benefited a lot from these new items. Dusk and Dawn, we've already seen do very, very well for champions like Sejuani. Speaking of which, there's that Sheen Rush coming in on that Sejuani top. So we're definitely seeing that Dusk and Dawn as that first item. But Singe, on the other hand, has access to Protoplasm. You know, that item, once Singe gets low, just pop that ulti, pop that Protoplasm, and you are unbelievably difficult to kill.
And, did pick up a kill themselves, GVG, in that skirmish by the river. So not too far behind the Ahri on the side of, on the blue side here, as we can see gold roughly about equal all the way across the board. Just only 1 extra kill, which will probably be just explain the gold differential mostly in this top lane. Icarus, though, on this Ornn is obviously going to scale quite hard. And overall, I mean, I think the compositions both look really strong. I think the outscaling potential is a little bit stronger on the side of Gluttony, but I think Street Fighters can definitely still close out this game early on and have quite a sizable advantage. And, of course, the resets for Viego is going to be huge in a lot of these fights.
Yeah, resets will be a big one. Now, one thing I will note that GCCE Street Fighters are lacking is the single target damage, right? Unless you can get a pick directly onto a single champion, right? Whether it be with the Varus ultimate, whether it be with the Sejuani ultimate, it's going to be relatively difficult to actually burst down a single person in order to give Viego those resets that he truly deserves. But in the end, it's going to be a matter of tanky meatball sort of team that slowly pokes you down with this poke Varus against a team that has, a very solid front line, but more importantly than that, DPS out the wazoo.
All right, GVG might be calling a little bit of trouble as Midnight is going to start cutting down this Singe, and it's going to be Midnight that picks up the kill on Singe with the assist from Jack. And you can see going to be the Viego trying to catch this wave a bit. Mr. Lean here for some additional support in case they go on to this Viego. I don't think that's going to be the case, but great rotation over from Midnight, who is the jungler on the side of XSV, as Icarus going to go for some stuns, some damage, and the Squang going to pick up a Scuttle on top of it.
Yeah, going to be picking up that Scuttle, going to be picking up more components towards that Dusk and Dawn. Now, we've got Dusk and Dawn abusers every which where. It's not going to be the Dusk and Dawn Varus, though, which is actually one of the very, very highly contested picks that you would see in solo queue nowadays. Pro play, not so much, but instead it is just going to be that lethality Varus that we know and love or loathe, you know, depending on who it is that you do ask. But in the meantime, Gav, Doogie, Fresh just going to be continuing to swing away in this top lane. Many of these bolus wings are just going to be doing a decent amount of damage against Icarus over and over and over again.
I do like the lethality option that looks like Big News is going for, because there's not really too many tanking targets on the side of XSV except for really the Ornn, right? But outside the Ornn, you have a lot of play into everything else. But means that Icarus can definitely make some potential big plays if he stays pretty immortal in some of these fights.
Yeah, and staying immortal in these lanes at the very least is extremely potent in that top lane, right? You want to be able to finish that quest as soon as possible, and if you can get this kill right here, that could be a big quest push.
Oh, and we get the ult to land, but Icarus going to burn the flash to get away from it. 3-man gank on this top side, but Icarus going to try to play it as safe as possible. And resources being spent, but we do grab the flash out of the Ornn, which means that this next potential gank could be a little bit better. Looking at the rest of the lanes, though, this means that Big News is left by himself, and that means some plates will be going over to the bot lane of XSV, and Big News out of mana as well, which is not a great time for a lethality Varus.
Yeah, not the greatest of moments, especially with Midnight just rounding out this potential bot lane dive here. News does still have access to the flash, to the barrier, so you got to be a little bit careful here. Icarus continuing to trade in that top lane, but look at bot lane.
All right, trying to make something happen in this bottom lane as Big News has been sitting here for quite a while. Barry going to be popped, but Outrage still going to pick up the kill. Now GVG number 1 is going to be here for the assist as Outrage is trying to kite it out, is ignited, but doing a ton of damage on this Yunar. Might get away from it, but no, the Viego's going to clean up, and here comes the reset as Viego going to start grabbing up some souls. Midnight going to grab another kill, but Joker grabs the double on this Viego. Definitely going to be good, well used. DPS John running for his life. Let's see if this Karma can get away. I think should be able to. Joker trying to close the gap, but not going to be able to, as John is going to be able to get to safety. Overall score is 6-6. A lot of the gold on the junglers, but as well as both ADCs. So picking up quite a lot of value in a lot of these fights, and gold on definitely on the right targets.
Yeah, gold on the right targets. I mean, all I'm saying, right, is that we've got the most gold in the game on the players who clearly spent the most money on their skins, right? We've got the Exalted Ahri in the mid lane. We've got the brand new Viego skin in that top lane. And we got even more trading going on over here as Gav, Doogie, Fresh still managing to find ways to come out on top.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily rooting for any particular team, but a pentakill on that Viego skin does look quite nice. Almost makes me wish I played Viego myself, but I could only live vicariously through Joker in this particular game. Gold differential is starting to grow a bit for XSV, but nothing too crazy, nothing too unmanageable, as the first Drake and the Grubs do go over to Street Fighter, so definitely have a strong control on those objectives.
Yeah, very strong control. And speaking of strong control, I will say this Singe pick, not so much control over the mid wave early on, but the later and later that this game goes, the later and later that the Singe is able to survive, the more and more that you cannot ignore the Singe damage, the more and more that you cannot ignore the sheer amount of space that the Singe will be able to control. So GVG number 1, dying 2 times early on in the game is honestly closer to what we'd anticipate from a Singed mid, but at the very least still able to get a good amount of utility off in these fights early on.
Yeah, this bot lane for Street Fighter is definitely get a lot of value. Crashing in this wave, getting some plates on top of it, and just no one really even to catch this. Also, on top of it, they're setting up for this second Drake, and that's going to be pretty good because they already have the first one under their belts. And I don't think the reaction will be there from XSV, so that's going to be a third objective going straight over to the hands of Street Fighters, and they can't really do anything contested. So, slight gold advantage for XSV, but I think that's something that you'll easily trade any day for Street Fighters.
Ooh. Yeah, and Hex Gate's actually going to be activated here. The Hex Soul would be disgustingly good for this team composition, but look at this trade in top lane.
Oh, all the Forge God, but the Glacial Prison is going to lock up Icarus before Icarus can launch that second part of the ultimate over, and buying him Gav W Fresh a little bit of safety. However, Joker is in the vicinity trying to help out, but here comes the Gwen. Needlework does not land. However, health bars are quite low for both the top lane and the jungler of Street Fighter. Let's see if they go for this dive or not. It looks like SSV. They're looking for it. Here comes the knockup. Oh, and Joker is going to be the one to go down, but Gav Dougie Fresh does TP out in time, and now TP's back in, looking for maybe a little bit of redemption. However, Ari is in the area to protect this Gwen. 1-for-1 trade, not too bad, as Viego is able to pick that up from the turret aggro, and now they're going back in on Gav W Fresh, trying to sidestep a lot of the spells, but still is going to go down. It's going to be Jack to pick it up. Here comes GVG on the Singe, though, fling back towards the turret, and looks like this Gwen is going to go down to GVG number 1. This game is full packed of action, 16 kills in under 13 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I love to see about Divinity League, especially because this is our kickoff match. Just going to be able to start things off with nothing but damage over and over and over again, pumped into one another. But once again, we're going to be able to see just what these teams are able to do with this gold. A lot of the times we see teams just take up a bunch of gold early on, but still, because they haven't quite meshed at the beginning of the season, we're not actually seeing what they can do with it. GVG number 1 forced to burn the ghost to walk out of there, but in the end, both of these mid laners are very, very, very scary.
That's right. And like you said, kicking off the season, the split, and of course the new patch. So a lot of changes, no more Otacon, so many different, mini quests for all the players as well, and maybe bring a little bit of power into the bot lane champions as, in the late game when they get those full 6 items plus the boots, they are quite unstoppable, as we've seen in some pro play and maybe way too many of my solo queue games too.
Yeah, perhaps. There's also something to be said about the way how mid lane has changed over this past season. Things like Rod of Ages mid laners have gained a lot of popularity due to the fact that the top lane and bot lane quests are so powerful, but neither of these champions going to be going with the Rod of Ages. Instead, they are going to be going relatively utility heavy, right? As we do see the Malignant on the Ahri instead of going for something more along the lines of a Luden's Echo, but this is neither here nor there. Top lane, once again.
Great Glacial Person to stun up the Gwen. However, the second part of the Call to Fortune is going to land, and it's going to be another kill going over to Gwen. And feeding up this Gwen is going to be quite nice as Shirei has her first item completed and looking for a bit more as Outrage is going to start chipping away. However, Joker is on the flank. Viego tries to dive in, but Outrage is able to hug the tower for a little bit longer. Big news, has to pop the barrier, taking a ton of damage. Outrage dishing it back over though, and Joker is able to get the reset and does go down. DPS John doesn't have enough DPS on his own, so it looks like they're going to grab some more plate on this bottom turret. Maybe able to take it down, maybe not. But overall, not too bad of a trade. I think the kill... Did the kill go over? I think the kill went over to the Karma, actually, instead of the Yunar. So overall, a pretty good trade for Street Fighters.
I would say that it is a relatively good trade with the Karma getting most of that gold, but you do also have to note, right, what is it that the Karma is building? It is going to be that Moonstone Rush, and I believe it's going to be a Redemption second. We might even see a Dawn Core later on. So this Karma is extremely, extremely powerful in terms of denying the Singe damage, denying any of the AoE that could be coming on through, and any gold onto a champion that has team-wide shields is always gold in a good spot.
That's definitely right. And this Gwen is accelerating pretty quickly here. Has 2 items completed already. The first, I believe, champion to have those 2 items completed. And that's not really a great time because a fed Gwen is not going to be a good spot to be in, regardless of what time period you are in the game, as Midnight on this Gwen is looking for a bit more multiple members in this mid lane. I think they're going to have to start contesting these Drakes because this is about to be putting Street Fighters on soul point if they are able to grab it. And of course, their objective control has been so good, despite the fact that they might be down a bit on the gold. But if you start getting Hex Soul, that is not going to be a fun time for any members of XSV. As you can see, this might be a strong 5v5 fight as all champions on both sides are positioned for it.
Yeah, we can see that these bushes are so important. We're starting up a fight here, but big news is no one in the area.
All right, big Mr. Lean taking a lot of damage on the Braum, but Braum is going quite low. Has the flash out. Call the Forge God is going to be thrown. Maybe knocks over a few members, but they're quite far at this moment in time. The positioning is fantastic from SSV. And here comes the Singe trying to wreak some havoc. GVG doing as much damage as can. Starting to kill and does kill off the Karma, but the Viego goes down for the side of Street Fighters. Means that it's going to be much harder for them to grab the objective, but the Gwen goes down as well. So it's no smite going to be in sight. All health on the side of SSV is so low. GVG going for the chase down, but has to dodge some of the spells from the Aryan. Is going to successfully do so. All 3 members remaining from SSV has to back off though, which means that this does put Street Fighters on soul point. Hexex Soul on top of that, and things are looking pretty good for them despite the fact that they're facing a fed Gwen. And really, a lot of that has to be credited to GVG just disrupting and starting the initiation of that fight on that mid lane Singed.
Yeah, and GVG just running straight through that fight, running in, running out, running all over the enemy team. And it feels like Dusk just has no answer for the Singe just yet. I said earlier, right, the Karma is going to be a huge, huge way to stop that Singe from playing the game, but without any healing reduction, without any way to stop that Singe from just running around town, you're going to see GVG once again just run all over this team, just get as much damage off as possible while the rest of his team gets to play the game.
Looks like XSV is going to pick up their first objective. It's going to be the Rift Herald. However, they are still quite behind on the Drake count. Gab Dougie Fresh just going to exchange some blows with Icarus, both just building up maybe some grass procs at this point in time. Neither can really kill each other very easily. But yeah, I mean, XSV, they're going to have to contest every Drake from here on out, and they have to fight really well in these team fights. I thought things looked really good for them in the beginning of that fight, but the Singe just disrupting so much and causing so much havoc for allowing Street Fighters to re-engage. I thought Mr. Lean was dead from the start, but he was able to even come back into the fight as well and provide some support for the rest of the team.
Yeah, and most importantly, you have to remember it is a Hextech Soul that would be coming up. And with GVG on that Singe, I believe this should be a Rylai's Crystal Scepter as the next item. But this is going to be extremely difficult for the side of Dusk to deal with if that soul is given over. It'll be essentially impossible to catch up to the Singe and much less kill the man.
Yeah, definitely. And it's we'll see how it goes too, as you know, it's just you don't really want to run behind the Singe. You don't want to ignore him either, but there's so many other targets dealing damage. The Viego, the Varus, even the Sejuani. There's now quite a bit on the side of Street Fighters. And now the gold, it's closing. They're closing the gap a little bit on the side of things as the top lane turret is going down. Looks like bot lane turret does go down just as we're speaking as well. 11-11, and things are looking pretty good for Street Fighters as they're continuing here. Of course, the scaling is definitely on the side of XSV. However, if you can't win these team fights, the scaling might not matter as much. But these ornaments are going to start coming through onto these champions that, man, look at the damage Outrage is taking from this Poke Varus and just doing, that's the power of it, especially into the squishy comp like this. Another piercing arrow is not going to land onto Outrage, but Outrage going to cancel it back and decide better things as looks like they might be looking to push this mid turret. Top laners are still going to be skirmishing on the spot side.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly a little bit debatable as to whether or not Dusk actually have the ability to outscale the Street Fighters here. Because while the ornaments are extremely powerful, extremely good on champions like Yunara, like the Ari, without a big pick, it's going to be difficult to actually make use of these champions in the team fights. Brahms Unbreakable does so much to neuter the damage output of these AoE champions like the Yunara, like the Gwen, like the Ornn Call of the Forge God, right? A basic ability just being able to stop that. And there's so many different ways to stop the Ornn from actually being able to reactivate his ult, whether it be the Singe W, whether it be a stun from Braum, a stun from Varus, Viego, or Sejuani, right? I would love to see, you know, XSV Dust find their moment, but they are going to need to find an opportunity by grouping up and deathballing a single person.
It's, you know, a lot of this could lean onto Yunara as Jack going to charm up GVG, but GVG is getting pretty tanky. And, you know, even though GVG's died twice, I mean, if you look at the CS and the kills and assists, like pretty much even with the Ari, despite dying twice, right? Maybe a little bit slower start in the beginning of the game, but he has definitely caught back up. And speaking of catching back up, this gold graph is starting to catch back up for Street Fighters as well. One more Drake spawning soon before this, and this will be Soul for Street Fighters. You can see they're trying to position for it and trying to catch someone off guard. If they catch Outrage, that would be massive. Someone's got to find some vision here, and it might be Icarus. Oh, Icarus is going to run through. Maybe not the easiest target to kill, but does take a slightly safer route. Oh, Change of Corruption is going to land. I think this is going to be the engage you're looking for. Nope, maybe just going to be baited. Oh my gosh, look at how much damage Jack took though from one piercing arrow, as the Rift Herald is going to be summoned up in this mid lane to start kind to create some disruption here. But the Rift Herald does take out this mid lane turret as they are setting up for this objective. Drake is going to spawn, and you know there's so much value on the Drake for both teams. One to stop the soul, one to get the soul, and that might be game if they grab it on top of it. They do have that turret to lean on for XSV in this mid lane, but the position in the river is definitely on the side of Street Fighters.
Yeah, but the big thing here, right? The Herald was used up, but it's not going to actually do much for the positioning around this dragon. A single tower is definitely nice to have, but you have zero way how to pressure and walk in for this soul. Varus almost has his ultimate back up. The Call of the Forge God is still available, but once again, Unbreakable does so much to deal with that. Singe W does so much to deal with that. The Scuttle Crab also going down here, and the fight is beginning.
Oh, GVG flashes forward, but John does flash out for the time being, and they've pushed XSV so far back. They have to find a way to get back in this river to do something. Meanwhile, the damage from the Varus just poking through. The Scissors are cutting down. Completely fresh as Joker goes down. Hours are going to pick up the kill. That's a good start for this. GVG still doing a ton of damage, and the Gwen goes down as well. Jack gets a double kill, but goes down to the Varus, and now only three members stand actually for the side of XSV, and it looks like they're actually going to be the one to pick up this Drake and prevent the soul. No jungler to contest. GVG going to be the lone survivor on the side of Street Fighters, and finally a team fight win for the side for this blue side, and they do slow the pace down just a bit. As expected, Yunara is able to dish out a ton of damage, but a lot of that was really on Jack too. 6-1-4 on this Ari with that double kill.
Yeah, I mean, so much damage coming in from the Ari. You got to think about choke points, right? Whether it be Ari, whether it be Yunara, whether it be Gwen, there's so much AoE damage coming in from the side of XSV Dusk. The Unbreakable was put up in order to deal with Call of the Forge God, but once again, there's a billion different ways how to deal with Call of the Forge God. It's not just Mr. Lean's job, but in the end, the choke point fight comes through for XSV Dusk. A huge team fight win that would have made the game nearly unplayable for the side of Dusk here, but it seems that the night is not over just yet. Street Fighter still have to find more opportunities to fight for yet another victory. All of a sudden, the Baron is on the table. There is no teleport on Icarus. You got to be very careful for the side of XSV Dusk, but in the end, Gav, Doogie, Fresh not in a position to teleport in. The vision is available for the side of Dusk, and it's going to be difficult to fight that 4v5 regardless of whether or not you got the Ornn.
Yeah, well, let's see how this plays out here as his Ornn is feeling pretty strong. A lot of magic resist, making it very hard for Sidron to really go toe-to-toe with this Ornn at this moment in time. And, you know, Ornn, of course, has that late game assistance for the teammates. The ornaments are starting to come through, as you can see, with his own upgrade, as well as the Nashor's Tooth upgraded for the Gwen. Positioning is looking pretty good for SSV around this Baron pit. I don't know if they're going to pull the trigger on it or not. There is a ward spotting out from Street Fighters, and it looks like they might just go for a reset. But Midnight, even though Midnight did go down, this Gwen pretty early on, that fight did so much damage. On top of that, Jack layering additional damage and Outrage in the back, just cleaning things up too on this Yunara. So there is still a lot of threats on the side of SSV to worry about. And with that bulky front line, you know, it's mostly just the Ornn, but the Ornn's doing enough. Here we go. Looks like they're going to try to go for it. Flash Charm doesn't connect onto Big News. And that's going to be a big summoner spell gone on that Ahri.
Yeah, not only is it a big summoner spell, it is all 3 charges of Spirit Rush burned to make sure to try to land that charm. But in the end, Big News going to be able to walk on out of there. The Baron is being eyed, but there's too much vision for the side of Dusk for the Street Fighters to comfortably decide to go for it. In the end, beautiful stuff coming in from Big News, able to just walk right past that one. I'm really curious as to what the Varus's boots were. I'm guessing it was Swifties, just because, you know, the ability to outrun the Ahri despite all of those gap closers is definitely not something to be scoffed at here. In the meantime, it is going to be GVG #1 picking up even more Haunting Guys items. There's that Medjai's fully completed, which honestly, with the way that the man's been playing, I do not blame him whatsoever. I honestly really do love this pick. But one big question is, are we going to be seeing the Protoplasm Singed, right? This is one of these items that makes the Singed so powerful in these fights. It's actually one of the reasons why Singed has started to shoot up on the tier list. But in the end, when you got your back against the wall, you're relying on what you know.
That's right. And 10 sacks already on the Medjai's, and definitely want to try that. Keep that in check if you're at XSV. Otherwise, the Singe is going to be even a bigger problem than he already is. Being that lone survivor of that last fight allowed him to keep on some of those stacks. Man, this Gwen's starting to get a little bit out of control, though. 3.5 items. You got, you know, the stasis ready as well. So it's just going to be harder and harder to kill this Gwen as the game goes on. And you can see Midnight feeling pretty good about it. Level 16 as well. And just clearing out vision. Neither team really feeling bold enough to pull the trigger on end these fights. Maybe just waiting for this next Drake to spawn up, unless they get a massive pick. But so far, neither team really able to find those picks.
Yeah, neither team able to find the picks just yet. It is going to be 75, you know, actually what, 90% crit chance for the side of XSV Dusk 80 carry Outrage. Yunara with 90% crit chance is definitely a scary thing to think about, especially because, once again, you got to think about the choke points. You got to think about the AoE damage. And these minion waves are continually being cleared out over and over again. Redemption fully completed for the side of Dusk, going to be used up immediately. So we're not going to be seeing the redemption during this fight, but Karma still does a lot of work denying damage.
Jack, unfortunately, misses a charm. Does a good chunk of damage to Gav W Fresh, but Gav W Fresh is able to
Look at
get out there. Okay, GVG looking for the flank. The bot lane is pushed in quite a bit, so I think XSV going to have to try to make something happen to try to make use of this timer, because they're losing a lot in this bottom lane. GVG just split pushing and just causing some havoc on this side, trying to go for a potential flank. Not the easiest start to go through. He just flashes in and goes in and starts running amok through this. Already loses half the health already, though, from Outrage. Outrage just in so much damage on the Yunara. In comes GVG again on the Singe, and the, you know, just slowing things down. Here come Call of the Forge God. It's going to be the Drake taken up from the Gwen, so that is not going to be sold, but Yunara does go down to Joker, and the fight is going to continue. Yunara, the only member down so far. Health bars all over the place. 3 members down now on the side of XSV. Only the Viego has gone down, but this Gwen is now a little bit out of control. Can you cut through? Gets the double. Gets Mr. Lean and the Bears. GVG, the only survivor on this area, as the Sejuani is back in base, and GVG does go down. Loses a lot of those major stacks as well. And this is where things get a little bit troublesome for for Street Fighters because the scaling is already looking strong. This Gwen is looking even stronger as they pick up the second Drake. I mean, you know, Hex Soul would have been scary for Street Fighters, but Hex Soul for XSV with 4 Hex Drakes on top of it is even scarier.
Yeah, I mean, Hextech Soul for the Street Fighters would make it nigh impossible for Dusk to actually play the game. For Dusk, Hextech Soul completely negates a lot of the utility of the Singed. I mean, we saw GBG #1 just walking around, just making it very, very difficult for Dusk to actually walk into this fight, to actually walk forward and do as much damage as they can. And it's mostly a deterrent that we see over and over again, but in the end, it's not going to be deterring enough. And once again, we are just questioning how much damage is this Singed going to continue to output. There's one singular AP focused champion on this team. The Sejuani is going to be doing a lot of magic damage, but doesn't have nearly as much AP built up. But this Singed, being the solo magic damage carry on the team, is going to be a very scary position to be in if you're GVG. Remember, this is the first game of the season, playing a champion that may have sent you home in the last one.
Well, you know, losing or winning this one won't be as consequential, but you know, Street Fighters want to start off the season right. As you can see, Dusk feeling really good about their position. They're going to take over the jungle and grab some vision as much as possible. Gav Fresh going to push out this top lane to, you know, ease up a little bit of pressure, but Icarus pushing out this bottom lane with the Baron buffs is going to be pretty nice. And this is a very hard Ornn to kill, as we saw earlier. There's not a lot of damage, especially with the poke bears into this Ornn. They're going to lose the second in turret, layer turret for Street Fighters, looking like they might lose this bottom turret as well if they let things go a little too crazy. But Midnight on this Gwen just chewing through the inhibitor turrets. They're looking to try to grab this inhibitor if they can. However, minion wave is starting to deplete. Looks like they're going to rotate over, and GVG might be calling top position. Wait, hold on. This Karma taking a lot of turret shots for no reason, and big news is going to punish the greediness of the Karma. This might be the opening they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I guess John just thought that the wave was going to be there in time, was not able to get to the team quickly enough. And in the end, GVG #1 going to be able to survive to fight another day. And that, I do believe, should be the Jack show coming in for GVG #1. Definitely an interesting choice of items here on that Singed. Honestly, I can't really blame or criticize a lot of Singed builds, because Singed's biggest issue has always been how you play the character in the team fight, rather than simply the itemization alone. And I would argue GVG #1's gameplay has been honestly incredible for this game. We've been seeing a lot of well-played team fights coming from this man, just able to put a lot of distraction onto the enemy team. But the question is, how much more can Singed do the later the game gets?
Yeah, it looks like Protoplasm was actually picked up on the Sejuani and not the Singed this time around. Surprised no one's actually built a Randuin's for this game, because the crit damage from this Yunar is getting a little bit insane, and just a few hits onto even the tankier targets is not going to be a great time. But maybe going for the Josh shows, want to build a little bit MR for this Gwen as well. I mean, there's just so much damage targets on the side of Dusk that, you know, it's a tough time even to be a frontline for the side of Street Fighters. I think what they're really struggling with right now is how to start and engage on these fights, right? Because they're opting to use the Singe for it, but it's not buying as much space as the Singe did early on, right? Everyone on the side of Dusk is a lot bulkier now, doesn't melt to the Singe as quickly, and meanwhile they hit the Singe back quite hard. But the positioning is looking pretty good for Street Fighters as they're setting up for this Drake. They're still on Soul Point, but I feel like they've been on Soul Point for so long, and Dusk have just been finding the right fights time and time again ever since, you know, around that 15 to 20 minute mark. And things have been looking strongly in their control, as the gold lead is about 4K. Nothing too crazy, but it's more so the champs themselves, plus the ornaments makes that gold a little bit more deceptive. As you can see, just a couple autos and GVG's already below half health.
Yeah, I mean, already below half health, the ultimate going to be popped, and the redemption on top of it going to be healing as much as possible. This dragon has not quite yet been started, but look at that mid wave, slowly going to be pushing in. GVG going to be going over to deal with it as quickly as possible. But the pokes coming through from Big News is doing a lot to dissuade Dusk from walking on in. Here comes Call of the Forge God, not going to be blocked by the Unbreakable just yet, though.
Oh, and but a big knockoff from Icarus to follow up. As you can see, the Gwen trying to take out everyone they can. Joker does go down, so there goes their jungler. And Midnight still in that stasis and gets another double kill going over to Jack. Midnight on a killing spree. Gav going to be charmed up. This might be the game. As just going to be Gav, Dougie Fresh trying to hold it down. But the Gwen pulls off the ace and looks like Dusk is going to pull off this first game. They do take out the Yunara, but so much damage still left on the Ahri and the Gwen. And of course, Icarus nearly immortal in this late game into this Poke Varus comp. Only a few minions here, but I think it should be enough for them to close out this game as the damage from the Gwen just cutting through the turrets. It looks like Dusk is going to grab this first game in this best of 3.
Yeah, Dusk off the backs of the Dusk and Dawn Gwen going to be able to take game number 1 of the Divinity League. And I gotta say, right, this first strike Gwen jungle was not something that I had anticipated coming on in, but Midnight's play on that Gwen jungle has been nothing short of incredible. It's just been so much damage coming in again and again. Yunara looking a little bit more cat-like today, but in the end, the AoE damage coming on in from Midnight, from Outrage, from Jack has been only supplemented by the Ornn and Karma from Icarus and DPS John. And it's a team composition where if you can stand your ground and put yourself in a good enough position that you can hit the buttons, dang, those buttons do a lot.
Yeah, and you can see the damage from Big News was pretty big, but just not big enough as, you know, the Ornn just didn't go down. There were some pretty solid piercing arrows, you know, really chunking out the health bars, but, you know, that did not dissuade Dusk from those team fights. And the problem is once you throw the arrow, you're on cooldown for a little bit, right? And it's going to take you a little bit longer to get to that next arrow. Well played from the side of Street Fighters, but Dusk just playing those team fights a little bit better in the mid to late game. This is going to be a best of 3 though, so we'll be right back for game number 2 and hopefully a game number 3. Welcome back, everyone, to Titan Esports Divinity League. Week number 1 is GCCE Street Fighters versus XSV Dusk, and we just had an exciting game for a win for Dusk in that first one. But this is a best of 3. I'm Caleb Peng. I'm joined with Anti. How are you and Mr. Pikachu doing in the background?
Well, doing quite fine if we're going to be seeing some high level, League of Legends gameplay, as high level as entertainment is concerned, right? Remember, this is Divinity League, so we are capping at Emerald 4. So we're still keeping things, well, I guess statistically, this is pretty high level as far as the player base goes. But it's not going to be, master tier gameplay. It's not going to be challenger tier gameplay. Instead, we're going to be seeing some crazy, crazy comfort based picks, which I love to see get developed bit by bit. GVG number 1, for example, relying on that Singe pick that we've seen seasons again and again. Still haven't quite seen it work out the way that I think he wants it to. But in the end, it did a lot of work in that last game. It's very difficult to match the same kind of DPS that you're going to be getting from Yunara, Ari, and Gwen with ornaments, right?
Yeah.
Dusk and Dawn, a huge proponents of that previous game, whether it be on the Sejuani, whether it be on the Gwen. We just saw so much DPS be output over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think the composition for Dusk was just a lot more, meta relevant, right? Gwen jungle, Ornn top, right? Yunara as your ADC, Ari in the mid. Meanwhile, you got, Sejuani on the top side for Street Fighter, Singe in the middle. And those kind of strategies can definitely throw your opponents off. And it did work for quite some time until that mid game hit. And they were just stuck on that sole point for the entire rest of the game and just unfortunately could not close it out. So some crucial team fights. And honestly, those fights were, a game of inches, really, because if the fight just swung a little bit towards Street Fighters in those early fights, then that would have been Hextech Soul for them super early on. That would have changed the entire outcome. But Dusk completely clutched it out in those final Drake fights, securing every single objective from then on out, and they close out game number 1. But this is a best of 3, and there's still a lot more league that could be played, and we'll see what these players have, what it takes to take on Dusk as Street Fighters. They are veterans in many ways in our Divinity League, and we've seen them in many respects, so they're definitely not they are familiar with the pressure, as we can say. As we get the first ban, is going to be Jax. This is a fearless format, so all the champions, as you can see, grayed out on the bottom side from the first game, and any previous games are not eligible, just like how it is in the Pro Series. And you mentioned that a lot of Divinity League, they are leaning towards comfort picks, which I agree. But I do think that ever since we've also brought on Fearless Draft, a lot of our players have really broadened their scope of champs, which is really great to see, because some of these players played quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, I said before that they're relying on comfort picks, but Fearless Draft is a wonderful system that forces even the pro players to start relying on their crazy comfort picks. So I do love to see them come on through. But this is the perfect kind of league for that. But we're seeing very, very strong champions being taken off the table, like Malphite, like Sylas. Honestly pretty interested in the fact that Sylas was taken away before the Malphite was taken away, because a lot of the times if you're looking to threaten a Malphite, the Sylas is what you're banning. But Jace, a champion that is, I believe, nearly 100% pick ban in pro play right now, going to be immediately slammed. Midnight, as we saw on the Gwen, very proficient on these carry junglers. On the other side, it is going to be Big News on the Sivir. Now, Big News was the mid laner for GCCE Street Fighters in that previous season. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of these caster-based AD carries, you know, the ones that aren't so heavily based off of auto attacking alone. It's not going to be any of that Jinx. It's not going to be any of that Kog'Maw. It's going to be more of these, you know, as long as you can get the abilities out in the right position sort of AD carries. Speaking of which, another auto attacker AD carry, Caitlyn, very, very long range, very high damage. And Orianna Rise is going to be the matchup we see in that mid lane. Classic matchup of fundies versus fundies.
Yeah, there's going to be so much poke damage on the side of Dusk, and still unsure where this Jace is going to go. Could be in the top lane, but Jace jungle has been really strong. And hold on now, that's an Akshan? So is that an Akshan?
I think it's Akshan top.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, we're going to show the Akshan top. I mean, Akshan support would be kind of wild. So would Akshan jungle, but...
but the Rise support, we could be cooking, you know?
Okay, yeah. This does make things interesting.
I think it would be burnt.
Look, we already saw Singed mid, so anything can really happen. But like I was saying, Jason the jungle right now is super strong, kind of outscales most other junglers, and you can see Malphite, Mundo both being banned out. So a lot of those tanky, you know, meat shield junglers that can kind of maybe mash Jace are off the table, and I do like to see this. I think the real question is, do our Divinity, you know, junglers have Jace up their sleeve? But maybe. Okay, so Wukong, I would assume in the jungle, but you never. I mean, it could be Wukong top, unlikely, right?
I guess
because then that's a Akshan jungle / support. I have no idea where these are going. So this looks like at least gonna be a Jace top lane, right? Or sorry, a K'Sante top lane and Jace jungle.
Yeah, so it is going to be that Wukong in the jungle. As we saw from Dusk, they were trying to take away a lot of these go buttons from the Street Fighters, right? These AoE big teamfight ultimates. Wukong, very, very strong AoE teamfight ultimate. Honestly, I wouldn't have been too... I would have been pretty happy to see another follow-up engage here, and it's going to be the Janna, actually, at the very end instead of more of that follow-up engage. Something like... Alistar into Maokai would be a little bit tough, actually. So, you know, something that has the ability to really get that way to make sure this Wukong does as much as possible. But in the end, we've got a Wukong, you know, Joker on that Wukong, a little bit questionable in terms of the way how the team composition works out. But overall, a very good disengage composition for the side of the GCCE Street Fighters. Speaking of which, Dusk somehow, despite having a very good disengage themselves, also have the ability to play that engage, to play for the in. If you have the Maokai go in with that Twisted Advance, you could get the Maokai Orianna ball delivery system. Jace jungle could be an absolute masterclass on when Midnight is the one piloting it. I love this guy's carry junglers. I would love to see the same kind of performance here.
So still to be said on who's really going in this top lane versus mid lane, because I think it might be an Akshan top. You know, maybe they thought it was going to be a Jace top, and that's why they picked it. Range for range top, and Akshan obviously, you know, playing into melee champs is quite nice too. So I haven't really seen that K'Sante Akshan matchup, but we'll see as the positions haven't fully been loaded up here. But I would assume that's probably GVG on the Rise in the mid lane.
Oh yeah, I don't think that it's anything other than that mid lane Rise. It would be a little bit surprising if it weren't, but you know, Akshan top, they very clearly knew that they weren't going to be fighting against Jace top lane, right? Because you do see the Scion and the Mordekaiser ban. So you know that Street Fighter definitely wanted to take out some more of these beefy top laners, these champions that you sit there and you think to yourself, oh, well, it doesn't matter how much I hit them, they're always going to be useful. In the end, Icarus picks up the K'Sante, right? Still finding more ways to fly close to the sun. Still very, very strong meat shield of a champion. And there's so many champions that I think these picks can work well into. but there's so many more that you have to take away in order to make these work. This is a phenomenal game 5 fearless draft sort of strategy, but this is game 2. You really only have so many champions away.
Yeah. I don't know if I love this draft of Street Fighters. They don't really have much of a front line at all. Janet is a fantastic peel champion though, and you have a decent amount of mobility on the side of Street Fighters, but the composition for Dusk yet again looks a lot more meta, a lot more standard, right? And I think as long as they play to their win cons, they're strong. They're not weak early, right? But they're very, very strong late too. So we'll see. Oh wait, hold on. No, it's actually Gav Dougie Fresh on the top lane Rise.
Okay.
Interesting.
All right.
You know, and okay, so I mean, Gav did play some Sejuani top, right? Not the most meta top laner, so maybe has some tricks up his sleeve as well. I'm curious to see that. I haven't really seen a Rise laner Cassante ever really in early game or mid game or anywhere really, so we'll see how that plays out. Akshan though, very aggressive mid lane champion, and can really potentially lock down this Orianna.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, right, Akshan does relatively well into the Orianna. Rise does not do enough into Cassante, but Cassante will be able to survive for the jungler to be able to play the game, right? If Midnight comes up into this top lane, which I'm fully anticipating it, and I hope that Joker is also anticipating it, then we are going to be seeing some juicy action in that top lane. In the meantime, we are just going to be seeing the continual farm in that mid lane, the trades back and forth between these two, and like I said, Akshan Orianna gonna be very, very good early trading for the Akshan.
Yeah, Boomerang Central on the side of Street Fighters. Boomerang's on both the Sivir and the Akshan, and they definitely are not short on damage. Let's see if the damage can carry them over or not, as Outrage going to just do as much spacing as possible into this double range bot lane should be quite fine. Let's see how Jack is going to handle this Akshan in this mid lane. Something I thought about too is I wonder if this Rise top can potentially, I guess, I don't know, put Icarus behind in a way in terms of the resistances, because you might build some magic resist, right, for the Rise, but there is really not much magic damage on the entire side of Street Fighters outside of that too, so might open up some doors for the Akshan and Sivir to do damage later on, but it's like Cassante. Cassante's not the easiest target to kill no matter what he's building, but I'm very excited to see how this Rise versus Cassante matchup is going to go, as you can see a pretty early CS lead for Gav.
Yeah, early CS lead, but it's because the wave is still continually being pushed in. Nothing too crazy going on just yet. Speaking of which, wave being pushed in this bot lane until that siege goes down, and all of a sudden, we're seeing those trades come on in the mid lane, just back and forth between these two. Should be an early teleport back with the tier, because we already know that this wave being frozen would spell disaster for Gav Dougie. But right now, you do see that Midnight is on that top side, is clearing towards there. So right now, Icarus is just going to be clearing out the wave a little bit, so that way he can hold it close to tower as possible to force the overextension.
Yeah, we see a pretty early back from Gav Dougie Fresh. Maybe just going for that early tier, but can be a little bit tricky now that the teleport's down, in case take some bad exchanges with Icarus, but Icarus already down to half health, so struggling a little bit into this range matchup for the time being. But the Jace is in this top side river, might go for a gank onto this Rise. Joker grabbing the Scuttle on the bottom side instead. Gav going to ward up. Very smart decision, as it looks like Jace is just going to go back to base, so nothing too bad here. Overall, though, pretty even to things, ways to start. However, again, I think if this game goes late for Dusk, it is not going to be a fun time for Street Fighters.
Man, I have choice words about early game Phaelites, and none of them are positive, right? The immediate ability to just suss out that gank from Gav Dougie is definitely a good position to be in, and as a top laner it feels great, but as a jungler that is tough to say the least, right? In the meantime, Orianna actually burning flash in that mid lane, so we're going to eventually hopefully see the reason as to why I do believe that is just GVG #1 able to get that early trade potential off on this Akshan. I mean, these auto attacks do so much work, and you can't usually trade auto attacks into an Orianna, but if there's a champion who can pull it off, Akshan's definitely one of them.
Oh, and the knockback from the Entoful strikes are landing. Gav already really low on health and no mana. Is this just going to be a solo bolo? The flash is burned. And let's keep in mind, Gav does not have that teleport. So Icarus going to get a lot of value with this Cassante in this top lane after his... oh, wait, actually flashes forward and gets the first blood on top of it. Going to take a few turret shots, but no problem there. Icarus outplaying the range top matchup on the Cassante, and that is not a great start if you're a Street Fighters fan.
Yeah, definitely a tough start for the Street Fighters, especially with this Rise top, you know, a pick that we don't really see so often, but we can see right now, right? Dashes forward, does land the W, does land the knockback, and this phase rush isn't going to save you if you're not going to flash early. Icarus holds on to the flash, knows that it is going to be the flash coming in from Gab Dougie, but right here, pops the flash, pops the rise, and pops a bunch of gold into his wallet.
That's going to be fantastic for Icarus. This matchup could get a little bit out of control if things continue to go in that direction, as Icarus also going to be the first to hit level 6 there. And that top lane, GVG also taking a ton of damage. The combination of the Shockwave and the Shock Blast doing a ton to the Akshan, forcing GVG to have to back off for time being. TP is up as there's going to be a skirmish on his bot side. Joker trying to find something for his team, but not going to find anything as the spacing is really good for Dusk on this bottom lane. And now Gav has to play a little bit safer now. Oh, and speaking of playing safe, I don't know if you can play safe as Jace is here for the gank. Can Gav get out here? And Tofol is not going to land as trying to push him out. Oh, and here comes the ultimate from the Cassante, grabbing Gav out of it. And looks like the Jace is going just to get a little kill steal, you know, for spending some time in that top lane. And so far, this Rise top is not paying off for Gav.
Yeah, all out trying to make sure that Gav Dougie Fresh doesn't get a chance to play the game. Phaelites coming on in here, and despite the Phaelites, it just doesn't seem to be enough to save Gav Dougie Fresh. No flash available, no TP available. You think to yourself that you're safe because you see the Jace, but if you don't actually do anything with that information, then you're not going to be able to get much out of it. And just like that, the Rise goes down, whether it be the W, whether it be the ult. There's too many ways for Cassante to stop you from moving. And Midnight picks up a much needed amount of gold. We've said time and time again that this Jace is a huge threat in the competitive scene, but now that you have an early kill onto the Jace, it's more than just a threat, it is a promise of disaster.
Yeah, and shout out to Icarus for, you know, giving that kill over to the teammates. Essentially 2 solo kills for that Cassante, because the Jace didn't really do too much in that matchup. And oh, here comes the Shockwave. GVG forced to burn the flash, and now Jack feeling pretty confident in this matchup. Things are not looking good for Street Fighters in this early game. Gold differential is not really that big, but the problem is, again, this scaling is going to look really scary for Dusk, and there's just not really any tanks on the side of Street Fighters to tank all this damage. Jace's going to put a lot of damage in, Caitlyn's going to do a ton, and I mean, we've seen it, even Cassante just dishing out a ton as well. So really, we need Street Fighters to lock in here and try to find some win cons here or there, but Joker trying to find some ganks on the bottom side, just not able to find it. And unfortunately, because of that, Dusk just pulling a little bit away from this. They do get the first Drake. 3 grubs, though, are going to go over to the side of Dusk.
Yeah, Joker on this Wukong. Looking cool, looking calm, looking collected, looking like 0 impact on the map. Unfortunate for this Wukong here, but it's very difficult to actually get much setup in these lanes, right? Unless you're ganking the Cassante, you don't really have a lane with any CC for this Wukong. The Janna doesn't really have a way how to force an engage outside of landing a tornado, and while Sivir does have on the hunt, you can only run so fast into a Maokai. It's very difficult to see what this Wukong will actually be able to accomplish as far as the landing phase goes. Once the team fights come on in is when we're going to start seeing the choke points be a huge point of contention.
In the spot lane, looking pretty steady for both sides, but the problem is the advantages are more heavily in favor of Dusk on all the other lanes, and that is not looking great for the side of Street Fighters. I mean, there is a slight CS lead for Gav. Gets potentially a plate here. Maybe it doesn't even get that, but the problem is this Cassante is hard to kill, hard to stop, and on top of it, it's hard to survive for Gav. And Gav trying to do whatever he can in this spot, as looks like Icarus not going to land in Topo strikes, but the Pathmaker is going to come through, just doing some damage as much as possible. Gav going to be able to get away, okay, but landing one of those knockups can spell disaster for his Rise at any point in time.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, wait,
yeah,
here comes Ace in the hole, but the heal is going to come through, keeping Janna alive for the time being. A lot of skills used on that Janna, but I think Big News will be okay on the Sivir. Wave clear is definitely on the side of that champion, so should be okay without the support. But actually, mana is on the lower side. I don't know if they actually opt to go for a tower dive or not. Probably not. Just trying to grab some vision. Oh, wait, off map though. Gav Fresh goes down yet again, and they're just putting so much pressure on this top lane Rise, and it's looking tough.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, it doesn't seem that it matters how much experience you've got. It doesn't matter how much vision you've got. Midnight just keeps on coming into this top lane, keeps on finding more ways how to take out the Rise. A lot of the times, Rise top, the biggest thing that he's got going for him is his survivability, right? You take the phase rush, you take the flash ghost nowadays because you don't even need to be taking the teleport anymore, and it's very difficult to actually catch this champion, but it seems like they have been having very little difficulty with that. Speaking of champions that are hard to catch, GVG #1 playing the Akshan, but are you playing too close to the fire?
Hasn't died yet, but not grabbing as many advantages as you want. No kills on either side as the Ludens is completed for the Orianna, and things are looking pretty good here. Maokai does come through, knocks the Akshan back. Oh, and here comes a Shockwave layered with the Maokai ultimate, and Jack is going to pick up a kill. And meanwhile, Jace doing some extra damage with the Shock Blast. 4-0 so far for Dusk. And Street Fighters struggling to find advantages. I mean, many of those deaths are on that top side, but they're looking to grab up the Draken. I don't think you contest it. Wukong is going to be on top river. Gav having a terrible time into this Cassante, and Cassante just running down this Rise. Still full health, forcing the Rise to potentially base with no TP to contest. Oh, wait, hold on. 1 HP on that Drake, and finally does get it. Almost didn't grab that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those moments where you're trying to maximize the amount of damage that your jungle pet's going to do, but your jungle pet's not taking the dragon. You got to be a little bit more in-tuned than that one. But I do got to say, right, the amount of damage that Gav Dougie has been taking from this Cassante without the ultimate being used is concerning, to say the least, right? And as the game goes on, though, the fully completed Rod of Ages will do so much work for this top laner. Will do so much work towards making this Rise as relevant as possible. And as long as you can get to the point where Rise can finish Actualizer, this champion is disgusting. But right here, we're not seeing Actualizer. We're not seeing the Rod of Ages. We're still seeing components, as Icarus has already completed the Canik Rookern.
Oh, and we get a little Raptor seal as well. Midnight trying to do everything, and GVG going rogue, but is it going to find the chase? And the Canik Rookern already completed. Oh, wait, hold on. Big news. Caught in top position. No mana, but Mr. Lean is still there. Can provide some additional support. Just delaying the backs at this moment in time. Outrage doesn't have the damage to kill Big News just quite yet. You do have the spell shield as well for, you know, that potential ace in the hole damage. And looks like Outrage just going to push the advantage here. Joker is around, coming on for the flank. DPS John sees it, snuffs it out, trying to stun up Joker. Nature's Grasp is going to be thrown. Here comes the Cyclone, not doing as much as you would like. Joker already low on health, super low actually, and Outrage not scared at all. They're turning back on it, 2 versus 3. Now here comes GVG trying to go 4 versus 2 on this dive, and they're just unfortunately not getting anything out of it, and unfortunately spending a lot of time in his bot lane. But things are looking really good for Dusk in their bot lane. And things are not looking good in this top lane. Yet again, Gab caught in a tough position. Here's the 2v1 yet again. Another kill going over to this Cassante. Rada Aegis might be completed for this Rise, but at what cost?
Yeah, I mean, Gab, Dougie, fresh meat, just feeding the hungry again and again. Very, very charitable on this Rise, but the biggest question is, how is it that they're planning on coming back, right? 0-4 on the Rise, likely going to be worth around 100 gold per kill at this point, but with the jungler intervention, still going to be able to spread that gold around. It has just been lead after lead for both the top and bot side of XSV Dusk, and now the hunt has been popped. Bot lane could be a big fight.
Outrage getting chewed up from this boomerang, from the Sivir, and the spell shield to negate the headshot damage as well. In comes the flash. Joker's going to be the one to pick up the kill. Midnight is here for some backup, but Midnight's by himself for the time being. DPS John trying to come in here. They want to make something out of this. Shock Blast doing a ton of damage. DPS John, though, is going to be slowed up from the tornado of the Janna. There is no turret, though, and the Sivir goes down. A huge shockwave taking out Joker, and now GVG tries to engage, has the flash out, is ignited, can't do too much else at this moment in time. They grab their first kill, but they lose 2 members on top of it, including their jungler. And it's still looking tough for Street Fighters. They're finally on the board. A kill does go over to Wukong to help him, finish, get to that maybe 2-item spike. But there's already 2 items completed for the Jace, who's 3-0-2 now.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, right, that is so unfortunate for Big News. It was a solid all-in. You sit there, you think to yourself, yeah, this is great. I'm fine. I should be able to walk on out. Steps onto a Caitlyn trap on the way back. But let's see this here once again. Pops on the hunt, goes directly onto Outrage. The bouncing boomerangs once again, just hitting again and again. The flash forward from Joker going to be able to shut down Outrage, but in the end, all of this running, all of this effort going to be stopped by a delicious cupcake, and there goes the Caitlyn, there goes the Sivir. As many flashes burned as possible in this bot lane right now, looking very, very lively as the party continues.
Oh, and a massive shockwave, a solo kill for the Orianna, flexing the mastery on top of it. Jack is feeling himself, and unfortunately, GVG not finding as much success in this game. The monster going to be popped to buy a little bit of space. John and Midnight super deep in this red side, and they might have gone a little too far. The cycle comes through and a shutdown going over to Joker. This is definitely what they need. John goes down as well, and Outrage by himself. Caitlyn does not love to see that, and just right then and there, they give over 3 kills for nothing. And that's huge. That's everything that Street Fighters need to start this comeback.
Yeah, 3 kills so quick. You would have thought that Akshan had revived the team, but just like that, more gold being pumped directly into the Street Fighters. We're seeing these objective bounties also going to be picked up, whether it be in that mid lane, whether it be in that dragon, but Jack gets back just in time to make sure that Big News doesn't actually have the ability to clear the dragon, clear the mid tower, sorry.
And they do get 2 Drakes to their name. It is going to be a Mountain Soul for this one, and definitely not one that you want the Cassante to have at any moment in time. Building a lot of MR, but I think going to start building towards more armor after this, as at this point in time, Rise is not really going to be able to kill this Cassante anytime soon. It looks like they're going to try to grab with the Rift Tail. Things still look pretty strong. Oh, as we get another Shockwave and taking some turret damage too. 2 turret shots onto GVG #1, and Jack has the level advantage, has already done a ton of damage. Oh my gosh, GVG is going to have to play this safe, but I don't know if safe is in the cards for GVG. Does get out there in time, has the movement speed, and the Janna is going to be there to provide some additional backup. Things looking a little rough for on the side lanes for this Akshan, and Big News just going to clear out some of this wave as much as possible. Things are still looking pretty good for Dusk, despite the fact that they gave her those 3 kills. Gold lead is only about 3k for their side. However, they do scale pretty strong, and I don't know if they'll make another misstep like they did in the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a question. Speaking of questions, I do have a little bit of a question for GVG number one. Why plated steel caps in that mid lane? Right? I mean,
That is a good
so
question. Yeah.
so much of the game, right? You're playing against this Orianna, and so much of the Orianna's plan is just to burst you down. I feel like Mercury treads, while they might not do the most into the rest of the enemy team, still give you so much value because you have those upgraded boots as the mid laner, right? That mid lane quest actually does so much for your survivability than just a simple pair of boots would do.
Yeah, and I think you know, if it really comes down to it, because you could maybe if you look at the side of Dust, there's a lot of AD damage, but you could always sell those boots and just buy the plated steel boots, upgraded boots later on for late game, right? When you start facing more of those AD champions in lane or team fights. But right now, unfortunately, Jack is just running the field with GVG in the side lanes, knowing that he could just take advantage, especially with just little to no magic resistance and having the item advantage over this Akshan 2 levels up on the Orianna on top of it. Jack is not feeling scared of this Akshan at all now.
I mean, you can see that Jack is just doing so much work on this Orianna. Picked up the Luden's Echo, going to be picking up that Shadow Flame, just looking to do as much damage as possible. Look at this right here, right? You know, they're looking for that Akshan. They know that GVG number one's coming eventually. Where is the shockwave? Where is the damage? In the end, they really wanted to make GVG number one's day a little bit worse, and Karma gonna bite them in the butt there. Might be taken off the table as far as Fearless goes, but the Cosmic Karma going to come on through, not going to be able to land that shockwave, not going to be able to take out this Akshan.
Yeah, John a little bit far ahead of the rest of the team, and then unfortunately the shockwave does not land either. However, no kills given over. Shock Blast going to go try to steal a few more Raptors. Joker has caught up quite a bit though. 2 items completed now. This Wukong is at a strong power spike for this potential next team fight. Let's see if they go for anything or not, but that's going to be 3 turrets down. All turrets still alive and well on the side of Dust, so the map control is heavily on their side as they're looking, and again, their poke damage is so strong between the Jace and the Caitlyn. It's hard to walk up into some of these objectives if Dust is already there with good positioning. Icarus going to have to catch this wave. Gav also catching up a little bit here. Is ahead on CS, but still no kills to his name. I don't think he has any, you know, easy way of taking out this Cassante for the time being. Just trying to match the side lanes, try to, you know, distract things a bit. Oh, wait, hold on. Shockwave damage landing onto Janna, but does TP out just in time without getting canceled. And now we get a TP through from the Maokai. Unsealed spellbook for the Maokai. Allows him to have a little bit more mobility in these certain times. GVG might be caught in a tough position again. He does get hit by the trap, but avoids the Shock Blast.
Yeah, I mean, these Yordle snap traps are so good coming in from Outrage. Just puts them in the right positions on the field and makes it so difficult for the Street Fighters to actually just walk around, just walking around this jungle, right? I mean, a lot of the jungle is lit up, but you still have to be so careful about not stepping on these traps, because the full vision reveal could honestly mean quite a lot. In the end, though, the dragon's going to be taken over here. Cassante is going to become even more unkillable. This tower might go down for it. I honestly love this tower trade coming in from Dusk.
Yeah, Icarus going to have to do something about it. Hits the clone, though. The shockwave does not land either, as Joker does flash out of it. Nature Scraps, I don't think is going to grasp anything, but the Rise still may be caught in a tough position. Everything being thrown at this Rise. Gav just having the worst time in this game, and that's a tough one because you got 4 members all targeting you, but at least you draw them away from other parts of the map, I guess is about the only thing you could think of. A lot of resources spent. Take out the 0-5 Rise, but he is indeed 0-5 now.
Yeah, 0-5 is off the map. More importantly, the Baron's gonna get started up here, and this could be big. Sometimes a bit of commitment is all you need to make these plays.
A lot of ultimates were spent, though, trying to kill that Rise. I don't know if this could be the potential fight they're looking for, but they have no way of getting in. They're just going to have to give the Baron up, even though they have vision of it happening. We can see the trap setup as well from Outrage. They were ready for a potential fight. They were looking for it even, but Street Fighters, they're just going to look to farm as much as possible, try to catch things up, but again, everything looking still firmly on the side of Dusk. They're hoping for a team fight, and Street Fighter just running around trying to avoid it as much as possible until they get their items up.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Baron's extremely important for the side of Dusk. Right, you're playing against Rise, you're playing against Akshan, you're playing against Sivir, you're playing against these champions that do so much in terms of wave clear. If I'm Icarus, I'm walking back to make sure that the entirety of my... Actually, hold on.
Joker, caught in a tough position, is going to have to throw up the Cyclone to get out of there. And Gav is going to pick up a tower in the process. I think it's going to be a decent trade for a time being. GVG, though, running from this Cassante, and Icarus trying to just run everyone down, not scared of anything. Meanwhile, this mid-inhibitor turret taking a beating. And of course, easily can siege this with the Caitlyn and the Jace damage, and they have to respect it. I mean, big news. You only got one spell shield, so you're going to stop some of this damage, but not all of it. And coming down to that last final inch on the health of that turret. Can they do anything to get in to stop this siege minion? But here comes another wave, and I think this turret is going to go down. Dusk, they want to close this game as fast as possible. But the Sivir wave clear is pretty big for big news, and he's actually going to be able to chunk away quite a bit of the health bars from inside Dust, and they're going to play a little bit more slowly as they know that they have a strong late game as well, so they don't have to end it just quite yet. Yeah, I'm looking for something.
Yeah, I mean, strong late game is an understatement, right? Sivir, one of those champions, like Rise, notwithstanding, just does so much damage in that late game. Sivir, the champion that we've said time and time again, 6-item power spike is what this AD carry is defined by. Just does so much damage when you can actually get to a full build. It's just a matter of getting there, and it's all about that wave clear. That's the reason why this Baron's so important. But right now, Dragon coming up in 1 minute and 30 seconds. We're going to be seeing more and more setup coming in from XSV Dusk.
Icarus looking unkillable last game, looking even more unkillable this game. Has the Randuin's complete level 17 as well, but Mr. Lean going to be one called out. Nature Scrap's going to be able to close it out here. Monsoon and everything not able to keep this Janna alive. Actually, the first death for Mr. Lean, though, which is quite surprising because he was taking quite a bit of damage, but it was just positioned well in a lot of those situations. Unfortunately, not the case this time around, and this might be the final fight for Dust as they're looking to close out and take out these structures of Street Fighters. Gav, Dougie Fresh, trying to do something, trying to survive it, and unfortunately goes down yet again. Joker coming in with the Cyclone, doing a ton of damage to the Caitlyn. And Caitlyn going to have to back off a little bit, but no, picks up the double kill instead. Big news, going to be the next to fall. However, Sivir does go down to the Caitlyn. Caitlyn goes down to the Sivir. There's still 2 structures remaining to protect this Nexus. Look at the health on the Jace. Just a piece of wind might take out the Jace, but the problem is there's not enough damage. And look at this, Icarus just sitting there. They're tanking the damage. There's nothing that could kill him at this moment in time. And GVG had a great Singe game, but unfortunately, the Akshan was not it for this game. And Icarus is on a killing spree. And Dust takes the 2-0 victory over Street Fighters to kick off Divinity League.
Yeah, and just like that, we've said it time and time again. Players relying on their comfort picks is so key for these games. But XSV Dusk bring out not just the comfort picks, but also these extremely strong meta picks. In that previous game, it was Midnight on that Gwen jungle for comfort, but this time gonna be rocking the Jace, right? Last time we saw, you know, just the Ahri in that mid lane. This time we're going to be seeing the Orianna, the Caitlyn, Maokai, you know, 2 champions who we might not necessarily see so much Maokai in terms of the support role nowadays, but I honestly loved the ability for Maokai to not only be a ball delivery system, but also to just completely stop any sort of engage from the side of GCCE Street Fighters. It was a wonderful play coming in from XSV Dusk. Welcome to the Divinity League, taking out one of our more tenured teams. And I would love to see even more of this crazy gameplay going forward.
Yeah, I mean their drafts just look so on point, right? And so did their gameplay too. And I think gameplay from Street Fighters was solid. Maybe a little bit of a draft diff in both games, particularly the second one. But the season and the split is still early, so plenty of time left to still make the playoffs. 7 weeks of the regular season before we go into playoffs, and we do close out week 1 with a strong victory for XSV Dusk. And hey, Midnight was looking fantastic on that jungler, and looking forward to see a little bit more, because clearly the meta picks is something that he is familiar with. But appreciate you all stopping by. I think we have some merch as well, so as always, if you have a chance to check out the merch and support Titan Esports, we have more than just Divinity League. We have matches going on almost throughout the entire week. So definitely support Titan Esports as much as you can. Again, shout out to Shirogen and Notori for working on broadcast and observer duties behind the scenes to make sure we have a smooth production. But any final words, Hantai?
Yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly, we also needed, I can't find it right now, but either way, all I can say is that was a wonderful time casting with you, Caleb. I'm glad to be back, but we are going to be here next week on Monday, at 5 p.m. PST, 8 p.m. EST, streaming the same Divinity League, but make sure to tune in to the rest of the season in the rest of the days of the week, because we've always got things going on.
All right. Well, thanks all for tuning in. Again, congrats to Dusk for the week 1 victory, and we'll catch you all next Monday. Until then, peace out.